2026 is here, and that means HHN 34 is in the rearview mirror. We are onto a brand new year, and that means it's time to now talk once again about what we'd like to see at the next upcoming HHN event. I always do this video early on in the year. It's usually the first video I do in the new year, and I thought it was a fitting video to return to YouTube with, kind of concluding the 2025 season going into 2026. Y'all really love these videos, and I really love making them because we're at that point in the year that it's early enough, anything can kind of be on the table for the next Halloween Horror Nights event. And of course, you know, we talk about HHN all year round. But before we get into my picks, my wants, my wishes for the 2026 Halloween Horror Nights season, it's important to clarify that none of this is officially confirmed to be coming to the event. Everything in this video is just my opinions, my wants, stuff we're kind of hearing around the community. So take everything with a grain, a handful, a truck full of salt, of course. But without further ado, I don't want to waste any more time. We have 10 haunted houses to talk about in this video right here. So let's just jump right into the IP and original based haunted houses I think we could be seeing at HHN 2026. Now, before we jump into my picks specifically, I do want to talk about this year in general, because I think this is going to be a very big year for Halloween Horror Nights for a few different reasons. In Orlando, this event marks the 35th anniversary of Halloween Horror Nights, and with an anniversary year comes usually really big and popular haunted houses, fan service for icons and originals of the past, and really big IPs, because this is just a big marquee event year. So naturally, HHN 35 has some pretty big shoes to fill, but I think that's especially true coming after the year we got with HHN 34. We had 5 major IPs: Terrifier, Five Nights at Freddy's, WWE, Jason Voorhees, Fallout, big original concepts that we saw at last year's event. Last year's event was the most popular event in the post-COVID years for sure, and maybe the most generally popular event that we've seen in the event's history. For it being the prelude to an anniversary year, Halloween Horror Nights 34 went really big, so I'm expecting HHN 35 to follow in its footsteps. So with that being said, which IPs and originals do I think we could see at Halloween Horror Nights 2026? Well, let's jump right in with possibly the biggest one at any given HHN event it's been featured at in the past, and that is of course Stranger Things. Now, just recently we got the Stranger Things series finale, concluding over a decade's worth of television. And in that time, we've seen 3 haunted houses at Halloween Horror Nights, each one becoming more popular than the last. So it would only make sense that we would see Stranger Things 5, the conclusion to the Netflix series, come to Halloween Horror Nights, especially in the year following its release. It makes sense. However, I do think there are some factors that could hold this one back from actually coming to HHN 35. For one, in the years since we last saw Stranger Things at Halloween Horror Nights, Netflix did partner with Six Flags to bring Stranger Things to their Fright Fest event. Didn't really go super well, but that did happen. Netflix did explore other options in bringing Stranger Things to other theme parks. And most recently, we've gotten the opening of multiple Netflix house locations, with many of them featuring Stranger Things as some part of an immersive experience. I know the one in Dallas, Texas has a huge Stranger Things experience that feels a lot like an HHN haunted house. It seemed like Netflix was inseparable from Universal for many years when it came to bringing Stranger Things to the theme parks, but in 2024 and 2025, it does seem like Netflix is trying to explore those other options. Of course, it is too early to say. As far as my opinions go on whether I would like to see Stranger Things back at Halloween Horror Nights, it is a little mixed. I was not a huge fan of the last haunted house we got back in 2023. However, if they were to approach this like a big compilation house featuring scenes from seasons 1 through 5, I think I could be into it. If it was just season 5, I don't know if I'd be into it as much. However, though, Stranger Things is always popular, so I definitely could see it coming to the event this year. And speaking of another big property that we saw kind of take the place of Stranger Things in bringing in that all-new demographic, let's talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. Last year, Five Nights at Freddy's was far and away the most popular haunted house at the event, and I think it was the most popular haunted house we've seen at Halloween Horror Nights since the original Stranger Things. Lines were ridiculous, merch was selling out, the food was endlessly popular. I mean, Louis was busy every single night. People were coming in costume. Like Stranger Things, people came to the event just for Five Nights at Freddy's. And with Five Nights at Freddy's 2 being released in theaters in December of 2025, there is a lot of material open for them if they wanted to do a Five Nights at Freddy's sequel haunted house. I mean, you have the toys, you have the Withered, you have the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location that is much more elaborate than the one we saw in the movie, and in turn, the haunted house. And of course, the film was released by Blumhouse and Universal seemed to put a lot of money and effort into bringing Five Nights at Freddy's to life for HHN on both coasts, between the animatronics, the puppets, the sets. The only thing that I could see maybe holding this one back from coming to Halloween Horror Nights at least this year is maybe that it is a little too soon, although we did see Stranger Things have back-to-back haunted houses. Not sure if they'd want to do that with Five Nights at Freddy's. But if they were to say Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is coming to Halloween Horror Nights 35, I totally would not be surprised. This would be another super popular slam-packed haunted house. Now we're going to go from some fan favorite properties to one that kind of came out of nowhere but has a lot of backing from the HHN community, and that is Hellraiser. Now, rumors of a Hellraiser haunted house coming to Halloween Horror Nights 35 broke even while HHN 34 was in the midst of its run. And on the surface, it seems like a really cool idea because this is a world we have yet to really explore at Halloween Horror Nights. It is a classic horror franchise, kind of a cult classic one in my opinion. Pinhead is an iconic villain, and there's a lot of really surreal and dark horror elements that could make for a pretty cool haunted house, especially if they went for the Jason Universe Legacy of Leatherface route and kind of involving all the different films of the franchise, although I think the first one is far and away the best one. It does seem kind of out there for HHN, but I think that goes to the nature of HHN 35, because with HHN 34, we got WWE and Fallout and Jason Voorhees in the same event year, all IPs that really felt like they would never come to Halloween Horror Nights, especially in the year 2025. So it really does feel like anything is on the table, and that's truly exciting as a Halloween Horror Nights fan. I'm never gonna turn down any haunted house, even if it's a property I'm not super familiar with. I can get familiar with it. So Hellraiser, I don't really feel anything strongly towards this IP or against this IP. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. If it did make it to the event, I think it could be really cool. If not going to be super brokenhearted about it. Now, moving from one cult classic IP to a very popular horror release of 2025, let's talk about Sinners. Easily the most popular horror film and maybe most talked about movie we got in 2025. It was my favorite movie of 2025. Ryan Coogler's Sinners was truly something special, and I think it would truly make an incredible haunted house at HHN. Now, the elephant in the room is that we did kind of get a haunted house like this with The Darkest Deal back in 2023. And if you know me, you know that is one of, if not my favorite haunted house I've ever been through at HHN, so I would totally not be against another one of those style haunted houses coming to the event. But I think it would have an additional twist with the vampire element, with the gore, with the action that we get in the later half of Sinners. So with that being said, I think Sinners could work at HHN, and it could be one of those houses we see, especially with the popularity of this film. It went beyond just horror audiences to where many mainstream moviegoers went and saw Sinners and loved it. It would be one of those big IPs that would have a really big draw at the event. The only thing I could see about Sinners maybe not coming to Halloween Horror Nights is because it is owned by Warner Brothers, and we do know that Warner Brothers doesn't typically license their IPs to Universal for Halloween Horror Nights. It has happened in the past, but it doesn't happen very often. But then again, I think if Warner Brothers and Universal wanted to make it happen, they could, and I would personally be really excited to see a Sinners house at HHN 35. Now, moving from vampires to demons, let's talk about an IP I've talked about many times on the channel before, but it is getting a new movie release in 2026. I'm of course talking about Evil Dead. For one, the original Evil Dead is celebrating its 45th anniversary this year. They always seem to have some kind of anniversary property at the event in any given year. And that anniversary is also tying in with a new release, Evil Dead Burn, coming this summer. So maybe we could see the haunted house based on Evil Dead Burn, or maybe we see the Jason Universe Legacy of Leatherface approach brought to Evil Dead. However, it does not really seem likely that this one will be making it to the event, so it does look likely that it will be another year of me begging and pleading to the brick wall to bring Evil Dead back to HHN. But mark my words, at some point we're going to get that Evil Dead house, and I'm going to be very happy. Now, moving from one evil property that is celebrating an anniversary and having a new release in 2026 to another, let's talk about Resident Evil. Now, this is a property that has had a haunted house at HHN before, way back in 2013. So while it is not a brand new property, it has been too many years since we've seen Resident Evil at the event. As I mentioned, Resident Evil is also celebrating an anniversary, 30th anniversary this year, and we are getting a new film directed by Zach Cregers, who previously directed Weapons, later on in 2026. And we're also getting the release of a new video game, Resident Evil Requiem, earlier in 2026. So we know Resident Evil is going to have a very big year this year. Why not complete that with a new haunted house coming to Halloween Horror Nights? Maybe this brings us all the way back to the original Resident Evil game. Maybe this brings us back to Raccoon City like we saw with the last haunted house, or the location we're going to be seeing in that upcoming Resident Evil movie. Honestly, any direction they go with a Resident Evil house would be really exciting. I think this one has a pretty decent shot at making it at the event just because it is one of those properties that seems like everything is lining up for it to appear at HHN. And finally, our final IP on this list, we're going to talk about another video game property that's been featured at Halloween Horror Nights before and is also getting a movie release in 2026. Of course, I'm talking about Silent Hill. We are in the midst of a Silent Hill revival, between Silent Hill 2 getting that remake on the current gen consoles. We do have the Return to Silent Hill movie coming at the end of this month. And Konami does seem like they want to go full steam ahead on making Silent Hill a more relevant franchise with more installments in the near future. It seems like Silent Hill is kind of coming out of the fog and into public consciousness once again, so I feel like that could be complemented with a house at Halloween Horror Nights. Honestly, a lot of my comments with Resident Evil also apply to Silent Hill. I think it would be the perfect time to bring this property back. Of course, we did see it back in 2012. It was actually the first video game IP featured at Halloween Horror Nights. And we've learned a lot since 2012 in adapting these video game properties to the event. So I think bringing the world of Silent Hill, really focusing on that liminal horror that made those early games so iconic, could create a really unique haunted house experience and could make fans out of those who maybe aren't as familiar with Silent Hill. Now, moving away from the world of intellectual properties, let's talk about some of the potential originals we could see at Halloween Horror Nights 35. As I mentioned before, I think this is going to be a really big year for originals. I think this is going to be the fan service original year, whereas I felt like last year was the fan service IP year. And I think that's going to start with the first concept I'm going to bring forth, which is a big anniversary mashup of some sort. At HHN 20, we got The Hallowed Past. At HHN 25, we got Jak Presents 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem. And at HHN 30, we got Welcome to Scary Ohio, or Icons Captured. They both kind of fit the same mold. These big haunted houses that feature different scenes from past haunted houses, different characters, different icons. And I think we're going to be seeing another one of those this year with some more contemporary Halloween Horror Nights houses. Really, anything is kind of on the table for these anniversary mashups. I don't think there will be a consistent theme like we saw with Cary, Ohio back at HHN 30, unless they wanted to do something really cool and give us a Legendary Truth theme to this mashup house. That would be really sick, but I think generally we're going to be seeing one big haunted house that's going to feature different scenes, different segments from previous haunted houses. I know these haunted houses aren't for everybody, but I really like the idea of potentially seeing haunted houses I never got to do at HHN, or even just returning to some ones that I fondly remember from the past few years of Halloween Horror Nights. But one haunted house I don't think we're going to see in this mashup is Slaughter Cinema, because I think, and moving on to my next concept, we're going to get another Slaughter Cinema spinoff. Last year we saw big success with Hatchet and Chains and The Cat Lady of Crooked Lane, the latter of which actually winning Scare Zone of the Year and both being based off of installments from Slaughter Cinema 2. I think Universal might want to continue riding this wave and bring another Slaughter Cinema spinoff to HHN 35. Maybe we actually get the Heavy Metal Hell 3D section in a full haunted house. I know a lot of people have been talking about that one. Mardi Gras Murders I think could also make a really fun haunted house considering the Mardi Gras event that they have at Universal and how much they can pull from that. But even like jumping back to the original Slaughter Cinema, bringing something like Devil Dogs or Midnight Snack 2 to the event as a full haunted house. Really, whatever they might choose for a Slaughter Cinema spinoff could be really great. I know a lot of people were doubting Hatchet and Chains early on last year, and it turned out to be a really big fan favorite at the event. So really, any idea has the potential to make a great haunted house at Halloween Horror Nights. Well, maybe everyone except the mummy strippers. I don't think we need to bring that one back. Now finally, let's talk about the big one, the one I've saved for last, the one everybody's been talking about, really since the idea was brought up a few years ago of bringing these characters together. I think we are going to see that Jack vs. Oddfellow house at Halloween Horror Nights 35. It is probably the most basic pick on this list, but I think Jack vs. Oddfellow needs to happen at HHN 35. We haven't seen Jack the Clown in 5 years, and last time we saw him, he was kind of acting as the ringleader of all the icons, but didn't really quite have a story of his own. Dr. Oddfellow we got in 2023, and that introduced the idea of exploring Jack's backstory, exploring Oddfellow's backstory, and really toying with the idea of potentially intertwining those stories. I think this haunted house could be the big icon house that we expect from Halloween Horror Nights, what we got with Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins, or even something like El Artista. Something that acts as the anchor original for everything else happening at the event. I really loved how they did that last year, tying everything back to El Artista. And I think it would be such a good idea to give Jack another chapter in his story at Halloween Horror Nights. Bring Oddfellow back for those who remember seeing him a few years back, who really miss his presence at the event. And I want to know in the comments below, if we do get this Jack vs. Oddfellow house, if we do see these two face off at Halloween Horror Nights 35, whose side are you taking? Are you going with the old faithful, Jack the Clown, the icon of icons? Or are you going with the new hotness, Dr. Oddfellow, the icon of the modern era? I want to know all your thoughts down in the comments below, as well as what haunted houses would you like to see at Halloween Horror Nights 35? IPs, originals, what do you want to see at this year's event? And you'll probably notice that I didn't talk at all about Scare Zone shows or any other event offerings that I think we could be seeing at HHN 35. And that is because I'm going to be doing a follow-up video talking about those additions. I felt like I had enough to say with the haunted houses that I thought it should be its own video. So stay tuned for part 2. Folks, videos are back. Thank you for your patience. I really spent the last 3 months really going over what I wanted to do with the channel, how I wanted to approach doing videos for you guys, just because I know 2025 was very sparse with videos. I didn't cover HHN like I normally would, and that was because of a ton of different factors, but I told myself, you know, HHN 35 is a big year. I want to go hard for you guys, doing videos, talking all about the event that's upcoming, and even talking about other stuff kind of in the midst of that HHN talk. So videos are back. We're going to be going all over HHN 35, talking about some history with you guys, because I don't really do history as much as I used to do on this channel. I know plenty of you guys really love when I talk HHN history. If you like this video and like videos about Halloween Horror Nights of the past, present, and future, be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to the channel if you're new. Again, just thank you for your patience with the videos. It is truly appreciated, and thank you for everybody who made my 2025 a memorable one. Everybody who watched the videos, subscribed, liked, shared those videos, came up to me in the park. All of you are truly appreciated. I love you all. And I think that's it. I think that's the end of the video. So of course, I want to thank you for watching this video one more time, and I will see you in the next one. Stay spooky and take care, everybody.